Hello guys, welcome back to another tutorial for YouTube. In today's tutorial I'll be going through the cloth modifier inside 3ds Max. Uh, as I stated in my last tutorial, reactor cloth. So if you have watched my last tutorial, you must have learned about the reactor cloth, how we can create a good cloth simulation using the reactor cloth. So in today's tutorial I'll be going through a cloth modifier. So first of all, let me just close this reactor panel from right here so we can have a little more space to work with. Today we'll using a cloth modifier, we'll kind of try to model a curtain, not exactly the same as you can see in this image, but closely to this one. I'll just try to give you guys knowledge on how you can create a curtain like this, and also we'll be trying to create an animated flag. So without doing any delay, let us begin up with our tutorial. First of all, let me just create a cylinder. Okay, so first I will be animating a flag using the cloth modifier. I don't need the height segment, and increase up the height a little bit, and then let me create a plane. Okay, so I think that much. Okay. Press the W key and 0 the X, Y 0, no problem, and for this one also Y 0. No, we don't need to 0 the X for that one. Okay, now the next thing is to add a resolution to our this plane. First of all, let me just rename it flag underscore cloth. Okay, and this one flags underscore stand. Okay, let me press the F4 key to turn on the edge faces. Then let me increase up the length and width segment so I can have a lot more resolution to work for the simulation. So let me bump this up to maybe about 35. Okay, or you can also try it a bit low, let's say 30. Okay, you'll have, if it's not enough, then you can later on add a turbo smooth to this. So now we are going to add a cloth modifier to this. So from the modify panel, modifier list, down here you can see the cloth. So once you add the cloth modifier to our cloth, let's say this plane, you'll have these options right here in the modifier panel. So here you have object properties, cloth forces, and simulate local, and so on. So mostly we're spending our time, let's say we'll going over object properties. We can define the type of our object, what kind of cloth is this, and so on. Here you can, in cloth forces, you can add forces like wind, gravity, and so on. And simulate, it's to simulate how the animation will look like. So let me go to the object properties. Okay, since in this one we are not going to add this stand into our simulation because only our flag is going to move, so we don't need to add this to our cloth modifier. Just selecting the cloth, go to object properties. You can see your flag underscore cloth that we renamed. This plane is right here, so select that and make it a cloth. So you have a bunch of settings right here you can play around with. You have got density, damping, a lot more, but in most of the cases just the basic setting will work pretty fine. Also you have got some presets right here for the cloth, silk, wool, and cotton, and so on. So for this particular case I'll be using cotton. More often I use cotton because it's quite good for creating like flags and curtains like that. So if you choose something else, you can see that the settings are changed right as you change the preset. Let's say cotton, you have got use trace 75 and so on. So you can just use your preset, or you can play around with the settings to get that. Okay, I think that'll be fine for this cloth. Okay, now next thing what I want to do is I want this part right here. Let's say let me turn on F3 key to turn on the wireframe mode, and I want this part to be hold right here, and all the other parts moved. So for that, I'm going to go to the clothes sub objects. I'm sorry, sub menus right here. We can find group, and then you can see that vertices are activated. Now just select all these vertices right where you want to make it steel, which you don't want to move, then make it a group. Then you can also rename it non-movable, let's say. Okay, so once that you created and entered, you can see that here you have your group, which is showing that unassigned. So we have to assign what that group is going to do. So for that, we have got many options right here, but for this case we are going to preserve. So once it is preserved, what it will do is when we simulate our cloth, this part is going to stay still, or it is not going to move, and all the other parts are going to be affected by the simulation. Okay, so next thing, I'm going to just add some forces quickly. Let me create some forces, space warps forces. I'm going to add one gravity and also one wind. Okay, let me rotate the wind so that it matches the angle, just 90 degree towards the flag like this. Okay, maybe move this up, it doesn't affect, but okay. So I want to play around with some settings. Let's say, let me increase strength by 2 maybe, and add some turbulence to frequency maybe 5, let's say. We can just test around, and if that's not fine, we can change it later on. And also for the gravity, I want the gravity to be quite less, let's say about 0.3. Okay, now next thing, we're gonna add these forces to the cloth forces. So let's select our plane and then go to cloth forces, select both of our forces, and then click this button, so the forces are added into our simulation. Okay, now the next thing will be to, okay, I press the F3 to turn on the smooth, and F4 again to turn on the edge faces. Okay, so once we added our cloth forces, next thing is to simulate our animation. So how can we do that? So it's just quite simple. Here's simulate button, press that key. But you can find here you have got one thing, that's simulate local and simulate. So simulate local is used to assign an initial state, different initial state for a cloth. Let me show you that in just a moment, but first I want to just simulate this, how this looks. Let me simulate this, press, so it's processing. So you can see that we have got the flag animation, but it's just falling downward. I think gravity is too much or wind is too less. Okay, so you can see the animation. Okay, so you can also erase the simulation by clicking the erase simulation button. Let me increase up the wind by maybe, let's say 4, and maybe reduce the gravity, let's say 0.25. Okay, once again, let me go ahead and check how does it looks. Simulate, it's still falling down. Okay, okay, let me bump up the wind a little more, let's say about 8. Okay, then let me delete this, sorry, erase the simulation first and then simulate it. Okay, now you can see that the wind is blowing our flag a little more. Or maybe you can also just pull this little up, let's say. I don't think that's gonna affect, but okay, again erase the simulation and simulate it once again. So it will calculate all your frames and show you how the simulation will look. Okay, now that looks pretty fine. Okay, let me turn off the edge faces and see how it looks. Okay, there are some artifacts looking like that, but you can add a turbo smooth to get rid of that. Let's say, look, now you have got more smoother result, but that is gonna be too heavy, so I'll delete that turbo smooth. So it looks pretty good, but you can see that the flag is still at the beginning and then it's starting to animate, but in real I don't think that will ever happen. So let's say you want to set your initial state as this one. Let's say at 0 frame you want this. So for that we can just simulate local. So first let me erase the simulation, then let me simulate local. Then you can see that our flag just animated. I just click that back again to stop that. So once that's done, and whenever you stop, our initial state is going to be that point. So in 0 frame we have got this, and then if you simulate, the simulation starts from this point. Okay, I hope you guys understand this. Just simulate local helps to change the initial state of our simulation. That's it, nothing too confusing. Okay, it looks pretty good. You can also play around with the wind settings and the gravity settings to get more good result. Okay, so now the final step is going to be create keys. So this is just a simulation, so if you want this animation to happen in actual or real, then you want to create keys. So once you enter that, it says that it is undoable. So remember, it cannot be undo. Okay, yes, okay, calculate. Now you can see you have got all the keyframes right here, so your flag is completely animated. You can also edit some keys if you want to. Okay, so that's it for the basic cloth. Now that we have animated our flag, let us move and create a curtain using the same cloth modifier, but this time we'll be using a bit different tools, or let's say a bit different use. Okay, let me just reset our scene. Oh, okay, I don't want to save this. Yes, okay, and then let's begin up with creating a plane. Okay, let me expand the perspective view. Let me turn off the selection brackets by pressing the J key and turn on the edit faces by pressing F4. Let me increase up the length segments and width segments about, let's say, 30 this time again. Okay, and let me also change the color to, let's say, about red. Okay, so we can see pretty much better, or maybe I'll use this blue. Okay, right here. Okay, now let us add our cloth modifier. Okay, we can also rename this, or let's say, since we have only one object in our scene, we won't have any problem. So that let that be plane 001. So once we have added this to our cloth, let me just first create two cylinders. I'll just tell you in a moment what are those for. Okay, let me just give it some height. Okay, move it. See, we want this to be in the middle, so 0 the Y position. Okay, and then just scale it up. I don't want any height segments. Okay, sorry, front view, and I want to duplicate this and put it just right about here. Okay, copy. Okay. So these are going to be the surface that will be used to animate our curtain. So don't worry, you'll just understand in a moment why I made them. So next I just want to animate the scale of the cylinder. First of all, let me turn on the auto key. Let me press the R key for the scale, and then set a key right here and move to about 40 frames and just reduce the scale down maybe about this. Okay, or maybe about this. Okay, so you have that cylinder animated. Okay, for now I'll just hide this hide selection. Okay, we'll just work up per part here and then we'll move on to down part. So I can turn off the auto key, so I've got that animation. Okay, now select our cloth. We have already added the cloth modifier to this, so let's go to object properties, and this time we're gonna add this cylinder to our objects right here. So add objects and add a cylinder. Add. So for this plane, since this is our cloth, we are going to activate cloth and go to cotton. Okay. And for the cylinder, we are going to turn on the collision objects. So once we turn on the collision object, we won't have any preset available since it's not a cloth, so we don't have to add any presets to that. Just adding a collision object, and if you want to, then you can also play around with the settings. But for now, I'll leave that onto that and press OK. Okay. Now next thing, as we did before, we are going to select group. Okay. Press the F3 to turn on wireframe. And this time we're not going to select all the upper parts, but we'll just select randomly few vertices, one vertices randomly. So that will give us kind of a wrinkle curtain type of look. Okay, just you can just select it randomly. Okay, maybe select this one right here. Okay. Okay, maybe like this, and then as we did before, make group. So let us just non-movable 01. Okay, and then you can see right here unassigned. Last time while creating the flag we did a preserve, but this time we're going to do surface. So clicking on the surface, click your cylinder. Now what it's gonna do is, as our cylinder moves, these points are going to move along with that. So we have animated that our cylinders, so these points are going to move according to that. So let me go ahead and do a quick simulate. First turn on this mode by pressing F3. Okay, now then simulate. So now that you can see our cloth is moving along with our cylinder. So that's what we did by making a group of vertices up, and then instead of doing a preserve, what I did was I did a surface right there. Instead of preserve surface, select the surface and select the cylinder. Okay, now that we have got the wrinkle for the top part, let me unhide all. Let's say we have got this right here. Okay, let me animate this one as well. Okay, turn on the auto key, set the key, go to, let's say, about 60 frame, and let me just scale it down about this. Okay, and also move this one a little apart. Okay, also increase it a little bit upper at the time, or maybe I'll just delete this animation right here. What I'm going to do is, we have already animated the top part, so at 40 frame I'm going to just select this cloth and convert to editable poly, so that we don't have any animation of that part. Now let me just delete this top cylinder, and selecting this one, let me just make it match up the size, and then again turn on the auto key, set key, and about 40 frame I'm going to reduce it to about this point. Okay, at this frame as well I'm going to pull it a little back. Okay, maybe I want to scale it a little more down. Okay, about this. Okay, now let us repeat up the same process. Add a cloth modifier to our cloth, then go to object properties, select this plane, make it cloth, cotton, add our object cylinder O2, add it, then enable collision object. Okay, now go down to group, press F3 for wireframe mode, and zoom on, or maybe this time we can go to front view and select, this time we are going to select all the vertices in the middle, like at here. Okay, and make them a group, say non-movable. Okay, and surface, select our cylinder. Okay, now it's time for simulating our cloth. F3 again. Okay, now just hit simulate. Now you can see that we get that wrinkle. Oops, sorry, I think I just forgot to do something. Okay, let me just erase the simulation and again go to group. Okay, and select all the top vertices right here and make them a group once again. Okay, make group top part, let's say. Okay, and then this time we don't need to use surface, so just preserve. Okay, now again go ahead and do another simulate. Okay, now you can see that. Okay, now you can see you have got a good curtain. Now you can add a turbo smooth to this to make it look more smoother. Okay, that looks pretty good. Okay, so in here it's kind of some overlapping right there, but that's no need to be worried too much. Okay, go to okay, we have here self collision, so we can enable that as well. Enable the self collision, and then again do a simulate one more time. Okay, that'll try to add a self collision to itself, so you can bump up the value and see the result. So I think that's how you can create. Now then you can go down and create keys. Yes, once the create key is created, the point you want, let's say this part right here, you can just delete the cylinder and convert to editable poly. Okay, you can add in a turbo smooth, maybe bump up the iteration up, and you can also add a ribbon right in here so that you can have a curtain in your scene. So in this way you can create curtain and flag animation and any kind of cloth simulation. You can play around with settings to get more better result that we played. You can just change the settings right there. So I hope you guys learned something with this one as well. Hope you guys to see you next time with something new tutorial. Till then, see you. Thank you for watching. Bye bye.